Good.
Should we sit?
Sure.
Okay.
We're here today for a very informal update on where we are with the 81 Viaduct project. We're joined by the Department of Transportation. I'm joined by Councilor Gethers, Councilor Nave, Councilor Hogan, Councilor Paniagua, the City Clerk, Nader. So I will let you all start. Just introduce yourselves and kind of.
Sure. Okay, we'll get started. I'm Betsy Parmley, the I-81 Viaduct Director.
David Smith, Regional Director, DOT.
And Mike Ryan, the I-81 Deputy Director. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Cozy. Sure. Okay to dive right in?
Dive right
Sure.
in.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about Contract 5 on the I-81 Viaduct project. This is the last contract of Phase 1. There are 2 phases of the 81 project, so we're excited to give you just a kind of a general overview of what's included in that contract. So we always like to start with this overview just to kind of place set so we know where we're talking about. Contract 5 is in the southern half of the 81 corridor, if you will, within the city. So it's the area from Colvin Street to Birch Street, adjacent to the south side of Syracuse, Oakwood Cemetery, University Hill area. Just as kind of a refresher, when we talk about this being Contract 5, we have Contract 1, which is in Cicero, under construction. Contract 2, let's do this. Oh, it doesn't really work, sorry. Contract 2, which is in green, which is along the 41 corridor in the Brighton Ave area. Contract 3, which is in yellow, which is in that Inner Harbor area, that's in construction as well. Contract 4, which is I-690 Krause Ave, Irving Ave area, that's also in construction. And then last but not least, certainly, is Contract 5, which is that area, again, from Colvin Street to Birch Street, which we are waiting for award to a contractor. So what's involved in Contract 5? So this is a rendering of what the future perspective will be. Basically, you can see in the picture is Dr. King Elementary, Tucker, where our outreach center is, and this is a view looking northeast. Essentially, what happens in Contract 5 of the 81 project is we start to bring I-81 to grade as Business Loop 81. We rebuild 81 to Business Loop 81 to the east side, so that's the railroad side, so that's the University Hill side. There is a new railroad bridge involved in Contract 5. There's rail construction, a new rail line construction, and it all ends in a roundabout at Van Buren. Part of this is also some traffic calming measures. So as we come from the south to the north, at Colvin Street, we start to bring the highway to grade, and then we start to introduce curves in the road, a median into the highway, street trees, decorative lighting, where it all ends at the roundabout at Van Buren. So one of the first things we like to point out is a feature that's really probably not spoken about enough is the Colvin Street off-ramp that will be part of this. This will be a new access point to the backside of the university, a great way for people to get around, and this will get built actually early on in the contract to allow people access to this area. In this rendering, you can also see that there's noise barriers being installed. So noise barriers will be installed on mostly the western, I guess the south side of the community side. Basically from the off-ramp to, I guess it's Brighton, State Street area, all the way up to MLK. And there will also be noise barriers installed on the cemetery side, but further south, kind of by Colvin, which you can see in this rendering. So then as we progress north, this is the roundabout that we are installing at Van Buren. There will be a pedestrian crossing on the north side, so that's on the right side of the picture that we're looking at. This will more or less just be a single lane roundabout, although there will be, multiple lanes in certain parts of it, but it'll function well with traffic moving in a very busy corridor. And then last but not least, we like to talk about the area by Dr. King Elementary and MLK. Currently, when you're on MLK looking towards the highway, you can see 81 right in the background. What this rendering shows is that Business Loop 81 will be further away. There will be improved pedestrian access. We're taking the cars away from this area. So I'm sure you all recall, originally the roundabout was proposed here. We heard, large community input that this was not the right place for a roundabout, so we moved it to Van Buren. So this will be, there will be a space between Business Loop 81 and the community that'll separate the two. There won't be that connection any longer.
So is the plan to have the barrier be green space between the school and the loop? Trees, what's the?
Sure, so that's where we get into land use. So that's been a big topic in the community. We've heard loud and clear from the council themselves. So we are committed to having a land use working group to really determine what the disposition will be of that land. There are different ways it can go. It can go for public use or it can go for private development, but our commitment is to meet with the community leaders, stakeholders, to set that baseline of what the rules are, essentially, and then have smaller working group conversations to really determine what it could be, because there are a lot of rules involved in that. So that's to be determined, really, for now. I think right at the end of MLK, it will be just, we'll call it a grass space right now, but that can be determined in the future if something else could happen there.
Well, to that point, the sooner that decision
Right.
is made, obviously, people can prepare the different entity that's in charge of it will be able to prepare how to take care of it, correct?
Yes. Also, so one of the challenges is when we decide what to do with it, it becomes what we call surplus land. Surplus is there's no longer a transportation use from our perspective. So we say we don't need it anymore, and we go to the next step of the process. We won't know how much is available until we're done with our construction, because there may be maintenance needs and things that develop during construction that we want to make sure we're not giving away too much or disposing of too much. So it's a fine line. It's a balance between doing it now and meeting with the community, which we will be doing, to the final, when something actually gets done in that area.
How large is that area, do you know?
Between 3 to 5 acres.
But all as far as all the acreage that the state owns, we're talking about 14 acres, correct? Something like that?
It's probably closer to 11.
Okay, 11 acres.
Sure.
Since there's been a lot of talk about this, I'm sure that the state doesn't want to have to be responsible for maintaining all that
Right.
property, whatever's left, correct?
Correct. Right.
So at some point, there'll be a decision made
Absolutely.
to maybe hand it over to the city.
Yeah, absolutely. So the intent would be to surplus whatever property, as Betsy said, is no longer needed for transportation use. And so that will, the survey lines are yet to be drawn based on what happens during construction. So timing is really the key, right? So the surplus will happen post-construction. However, during construction, we're going to have those conversations with the community as far as the land use working group to set that up in terms of how the surplus process will take place. And generally speaking, there's an opportunity either for auction or for public use, right? And within each of those categories, there are, kind of subcategories that we'll certainly discuss with the land use working group, but the timing is the key.
I'm asking this is we've been through this before with the Inner Harbor, for instance, when the state offered it up and nobody bid on it. And then it ended up coming over to the city and we were able to do something with it.
Yep.
It's just that with the on and off ramps is another issue, I just want to make sure that the city has a chance to obviously
Absolutely.
acquire that
Absolutely.
property.
Right, and that's where I think the working group becomes a really critical component, because, you know, the plan is to kind of lay it all out on the table of, these are the different avenues it could go. These are the constraints that are attached to that. And, you know, maybe these are the zoning rules there. So we're all in it together to understand. So the city will be at the table for those conversations.
And as a sideline, you're keeping the school district abreast of everything that's
Yes.
happening. Obviously, probably somebody, I don't know, Joe, does somebody from the school district sit in on all these meetings?
Yeah, I've been staying in regular touch with Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, the city certainly will be invited to be a part of the land use working group as well.
Carry the ball for us, Joe.
Trying to do you proud.
And, you know, something I probably should have started with more clearly is that, so it's in, Contract 5 is in procurement right now. So we don't have a contractor yet. So we hope to have a contractor soon. And then, you know, there's time that has to happen between when the contractor's on board and when we can actually start digging and doing work. So this contract is expected to go until sometime in 2027. So just so we can have an awareness of the timeline attached to it. So there's not a tremendous amount of time, but there's time to work through some of these conversations.
Was there an RFP for the contractor, or have you sent out one, you just haven't got any replies, or what's?
No. So we went through our whole advertisement and letting process, and now we're just working through the procurement. So it's the technical, you know, comptroller type of transactions with the contractor.
What's the perfect world expectation of how long it'll take for that contract?
Our commitment, our completion date, as shown in our contract documents, is, I think, July of 2027.
The start of,
Start is subject to when we can get the contractor on board.
Yeah, so we had one bidder, well, we had two bidders. But the first bidder, as you may have read, was found to be non-compliant with DBE requirements. And so that has caused a delay going from the first bidder to the second bidder. That's where it is right now. It's you know, we're attempting to award to the second bidder, but it's working through that process with the comptroller's office. So it's just, as far as the timing goes, it's a matter of how long it takes to get through that and then get it awarded, and then they'll start construction. So at this point in time, we anticipate that it will be this fall.
Joe, does the school expect to be able to operate normally during the construction, or are they going to have to move I mean,
That's. Oh, sorry, you want to go to the mic? Sorry. Yeah, in speaking with DOT, they believe that it's absolutely fine for the school to operate throughout the operation. I know the superintendent had expressed concerns about that still, so they were talking about considering measures to relocate during the period. But as I said, DOT has made it clear that that's not a necessity. So I'm not sure where they've landed on that, but yeah, they were considering, but it's, according to DOT, it's not necessary.
Joe, just a point. Having worked for the school district in one of my careers, make sure that the principal and the vice principal, whoever is running that school,
engaged,
is aware
yeah.
of everything that the superintendent's aware of.
Yeah, it's a good shout,
Because
yeah.
sometimes that information
I have been talking to the superintendent, but I haven't sat down particularly with the principals and the administrative staff. So that's probably put that on my radar to do in the coming weeks. Yeah.
And that's kind of a good segue to speak to some of our environmental commitments, we call them. That's very specifically in our EIS, it talked about the area basically from Dr. King to Erie Boulevard, really, and what we can allow to happen and not allow to happen. So things like large jackhammers, those are restricted. We're not allowed to use those in that area. Air quality monitoring, vibration monitoring, noise monitoring, with thresholds that we will hold the contractor to. So there's a lot of things built into our contracts that kind of what Joe's referring to is that we feel confident that what we have, the really much more stringent practices we have put in place in our contracts will protect the community in that area.
Will this affect at all the railroads?
Yes. So we are building an entirely new railroad bridge. So we have been in close coordination with the railroad.
Possible to be in close coordination with the railroad?
No
I mean, I don't
comment.
think, I don't think that's happened since
Well, I was
1890.
concerned by looking at this, was gonna be a
Right. So we've definitely, we've coordinated with the railroad.
I'll say a prayer at St. Patrick's today about that.
They have reviewed our plans, they understand what we're doing, they have approved our plans. So there has been, complete coordination,
So
if
this
you
will
will.
be by Oakwood Cemetery.
Right,
So it
so,
won't affect the deceased, what I'm saying. There won't be any disruption to the cemetery at all.
no disruption to the cemetery, right.
It'll be a new bridge, okay.
One of the things we are doing as part of the project, when I talk about lowering the grade of the highway, we are lowering it, so the gateway to Oakwood Cemetery is a little more visible than it is today. Currently, 81 is kind of almost level with the railroad. In the future, it'll be more visible, the gate itself.
Yeah, bring back the Erie Lackawanna or on track, yeah. Thank you.
So then just quick summary of all the different elements that are in Contract 5. So we build Business Loop 81. Again, it's further away from the south side community, closer to the University Hill, if you will. The new Colvin off-ramp, there's noise barriers, the traffic calming elements that I mentioned for Business Loop 81, the curves in the road, the trees, decorative lighting, things like that. New railroad bridge, the roundabout. And something we probably don't talk about enough also is we are installing a large drainage trunk line as part of the project. So we're separating the combined sewer as part of the 81 project in areas we're impacting. And this is one of the contracts where we actually start to do that, and we build the very large drainage trunk line to take all that storm drainage and separate it from the sewer. This is just a visual. This is on our website, but it shows what that alignment will look like in the future. So at the bottom of the picture is Colvin Street, and as we look moving up the page, that's northbound, where you can start to see the curvature of the roadway where the speed limit goes from 55 to 40 to 30, and then there's a roundabout at Van Buren.
Just a note on this as well, so you can see the alignment of the railroad and Business Loop 81 adjacent to Oakwood Cemetery. That doesn't change as far as the railroad goes. So we're bounded by that, so we can't go any further east, so there won't be any impact to the cemetery. So there will be a slightly realignment of the railroad in the vicinity of the new bridge, but that's for a limited distance.
So when
and
it's
it won't
under
be-
construction, the railroad will have to be realigned? Another.
It's very complex to
Yeah.
build this contract, to say the least. So there's a minor temporary alignment of the railroad, then a new final alignment in order to get that railroad bridge, because it's in a slightly different location. So, yeah. So that's what we had for Contract 5. So I'll open it up to more questions.
Want to give us a quick update on the rest of the contracts and
Sure.
where we are?
Right, so we thought we would touch on Contract 5, which is the I-690 Kraus-Irving Contract 4, sorry, my bad, Contract 4. And, what we see in this picture is the future condition. So we're looking towards the University Hill, looking south. I always have to remind myself which direction we're looking. So as part of this contract, we are reconstructing 690. We are creating an interchange. We start to create the interchange at Krause Avenue. We finish the interchange at Irving in a future contract. But what you can kind of see in this picture is off of Krause, you'll be able to enter and exit 690 to go towards the eastern half of the city, if you will. So you'll be able to go from Krause to get on 690 eastbound, and on 690 westbound, you'll be able to get off at Krause. So I don't think this pointer works, so you can't see. Oh, well, did it work? Not on the screen. So that's on right on the left side. And then we'll have a temporary on-ramp from Krause to go 690 westbound. In a future contract, we will be building out the interchange, so you'll be able to get on and off at Irving. But what we're also doing in Contract 4 is we're kind of reallocating the space on Krause and Irving Avenues. So currently, between Krause and Irving, some of it is one-way, some is two-way. And what we're doing on Irving, which is the street to the left, we're making it 2 lanes to head towards the hill, 1 lane to head towards 690. And then Krause, will be the opposite. It'll be 2 lanes coming towards 690, 1 lane towards the hill. Long story short, between the 2 streets, there'll be 2 lanes in each direction. And the determination of which lanes go where is really because this is largest employment hub in Onondaga County right now, and it's kind of the commuter patterns, how people are going. So we're currently, people are using that Adams-Harrison off of 81 bottleneck exit. This will be a way for people to get around, a new gateway to the hill, if you will. So when we talk about the community grid, this is one of those contracts where we're really starting to build out the grid and the access points. It does in some of the sections, like from Fayette to the south, but we are putting parking in from, I think it's Fayette to Erie Boulevard, because we're extending Irving Ave to Erie Boulevard where it doesn't exist today. So that was a lot, but it's listed out here in the next slide in your handout. So it's bridge replacements of 690 over Kraus and Lodi, the new on and off ramps from Kraus, to and from Kraus, 690. We are building a temporary on-ramp from Burnett to 690 westbound to allow people to get westbound. Just mentioned the extension of Irving Ave, the Irving and Kraus work, new signals, sidewalks, shared use paths. We're making some of the connections on the bike lanes to the Empire State Trail. There's decorative lighting, there's trees, and then we're also installing the drainage trunk line to separate the sewer in this contract on Erie Boulevard.
Have we worked out disruption to ambulance service and EMS? I mean, are they confident that they'll be okay with delays there?
We meet with them, if not, definitely monthly, if not more regularly, and they're aware of the work. We keep them informed of any short-term closures we'll have, but for the most part, all of these roads will remain open. They may not have as many lanes open as they do today, but the traffic will still be able to move through these areas. So they're confident they'll be able to find paths, and we're working with 911 even, so they understand what our work is, so they can make sure they're calling in the right entities to come from the right areas.
To that point too, I mean, as I mentioned, the school district, but the transportation, busing, I bet you 60-70% of the kids at King are bused in. So, they have to be cognizant of any kind of disturbance for their routes and all that.
Sure, good point. Yeah, one of the things that's built into
City
our
councilors love hearing that good point part. Yeah, when you say something, you go, good point, they really love it.
Nobody ever tells me that.
True. Sad, but true.
Well, and one of the things we do have in our contract is, so like any trucking route that the contractor chooses to use, we have to approve it. So when we talk about bus routes, we'll be cognizant of what those bus routes will be for the school and how that could play a part into our trucking routes for the contractor.
Get off base for a second. I mean, I just want to ask, you don't have it here, but what's particularly vexing for me is that Butternut Street ramp that goes over, that's going to be gone, right? I mean, Franklin, when you envision Franklin, this is totally on the other side.
Sure.
But, Franklin Street, when you go to cross over to walk down Franklin near the dinosaur, there's that Butternut Street ramp that goes up there and lands.
Sure, yep.
You go 690 west, that's going to be gone. It's very difficult,
That is right.
I mean, as far
Right,
as
that is
connectivity
right.
with the Armory Square, Franklin Square area to downtown, that is really difficult to navigate pedestrian-wise. So get rid of it, Scott. Okay. We are. Okay, good.
Right. Well, we are extending Butternut Street to
We're extending Clinton Street up to Butternut.
Clinton Street up to
Yeah,
Butternut.
and
Sorry.
the ramp
Right.
from Butternut to 81 northbound gets removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
That one's a nightmare too.
Sure.
So that's kind of the connection. So the contract 3, where we're redoing all of North Clinton, into contract 7, when we kind of redo Butternut Street Bridge, as well as remove that ramp that you're talking about, that little slip, and then we extend North Clinton all the way to Butternut, so that connection continues. So we actually
Somebody
change
will be
it.
able to, unfettered access up Franklin, walk all the way up Franklin, right to, like the dinosaur.
Yes,
From the
100%.
from the
And we're
Franklin
adding,
Square.
you know, obviously the pedestrian safe areas for them to walk as well. So,
Because there's that other, I forget the name of the building, but there's another building that just was rehabbed, and that building on the other side.
yep, I know where you're
Yeah,
talking.
okay.
Yeah.
Scott, are we eliminating the on-ramp to 81 North when you're,
In the, right where like Veteran Fasteners is and off of State
Yes.
Street and stuff? Yes,
Yes,
we
so
are
in-
eliminating
okay.
that slip ramp, yes.
All right.
Now, that's in a future contract, Contract 7.
Okay.
Where we'll be actually adding an on-ramp up at Bear Street, which is a part of Contract 3, but not fully complete in Contract 3.
Okay, so
That's
that
where
is
we'll be
going.
sending the traffic,
We
so.
will, we'll still have our on-ramp at Pearl Street. So
Pearl
we're just
Street,
getting rid
right.
of the one in the middle.
right, we got to keep Columbus Bakery in business.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you know, we're a walkable, accessible city. We've been working for this for a bunch of years, and that particular ramp is, it's very difficult to get across, you know?
So then the last thing we really just wanted to touch on, because it's so important to the success of the project, is the community engagement that we have done, we're continuing to do. We'll have very strategic outreach about Contract 5 to the community to help them understand what's happening, how we're doing it, what the schedule is. We encourage people to come to our outreach centers. We have one at Tucker, we have one at the Hills Building. We have social media, we'll have a newsletter, mobile app, things like that. So we encourage people to reach out, but we're also going out to the community as well. So if you hear from anyone that is, feels like they're not hearing enough, please let us know, and we'll find a way to help them understand what's happening.
We have targeted engagement for the parents of the kids at King.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Yeah.
I never hear that either.
This is the first one since he's been a counselor.
And that's all we had today. So I don't know, what other questions do you have?
Well, I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate Council Manzo for calling this meeting. If we could, because this, this will save us a lot of pain and agony down the road, hopefully, And you're right about communication, because everybody's siloed in their own communication field.
Right.
And, the more you can do, you just got to throw everything out there, I guess.
Right. So, truly, if you're hearing from communities or business owners and they have concerns, we want to know, and we want to speak to them and help them understand, because I do think there's still a lot of misinformation about the project, so we're doing our best to help people understand that. So, this summer we were at every festival I think the city hosted, so, and we met with a tremendous number of people and helped them understand what's happening. Now that they see the construction, I think people realize, okay, I need to understand what's going on.
And Contract 5 has the most neighborhood impact of all the contracts. Is that fair?
I think when we, obviously in Contract 8, when we start to go down to where, the viaduct is on Almond Street, I think that's where we're conscious of how we diminish that impact to the
And I
community.
think ancillary things that might happen, like, I know when 81 isn't being used, if that traffic hops over the north-southbound, State Street, Salina Street, or anything like that.
Right.
'Cause especially along the south side, a lot of those folks exiting their driveways might have an issue.
Right. And that's why our work zone staging, our how we build Contract 5 is really critical, because we do want to maintain that traffic so it doesn't go off to these, alternate routes. So 2 lanes on 81 in both directions will be maintained. And how we do that is pretty complicated. There's a lot of work that has to happen kind of back and forth. We have to build things to be able to move traffic, but we want to keep the traffic, the interstate traffic, where it belongs and not out in the community.
And as we go through that phasing during construction, there will be a time when the southern end of the viaduct gets removed later in the contract, so that traffic will be shifted onto Almond Street.
Any more questions? No. Terrific. I think we're good. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.